Initial D!
Sound. Sound is everywhere. No matter how you look at it, sound is integral to our daily lives, and within gaming, sound is just as important, if not so more than in real life. Within a game, sound not only relates to the ambience or atmosphere of a game, but it also relates to the soundtrack, the dialogue, the weapon effects, interaction effects, you name it, and sound is pretty critical in games. In this video, I want to look at the ways in which sound helps build immersion, specifically more sound effects and like the general ambience rather than soundtracks, because I want to save that for another video. To help us better understand sound within the realm of gaming, I want to look towards the way in which Egenfeld Nielsen, Simon and other scholars categorise sound within games. Essentially, according to Egenfeld, sound can be broken down into four simple categories: vocalization, sound effects, ambient effects, and music. So vocalization refers to dialogue and anything that would be heard from someone's mouth. Sound effects is to do with in-game objects, so if I were to fire a gun or knock over a barrel, for example. Ambient effects, on the other hand, refers to sound contributing to atmosphere, so distant gunshots in PUBG, or the wind in Skyrim. And music, I'm sure you can guess, is obviously referring to the soundtrack of a game. Although music is part of Egenfeld Nielsen's four categories of game sound, my main focus will be looking how the first three, vocalization, sound effects and ambient effects, help to draw players into the games themselves, because as Henry Jenkins says in his piece about game design and narrative architecture, game designers don't simply tell stories, they design worlds and sculpt spaces. Now that I've given a brief introduction as to what this video is about, the two games I'm going to be focusing on are Offworld Industries' Squad and Bethesda Softworks' The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Now, for anyone who already knows what these two games are, I'm sure you're very confused as to why I've chosen to compare Squad, a military simulation game, and Skyrim, an RPG. And the reason for doing so is that even though they are on pretty much completely opposite ends of the gaming spectrum, they both exist to draw the player into the world that they're being presented with. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is a game developed by Bethesda Game Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks in 2011. Within the game, the player takes control of the Dragonborn, an individual who possesses the blood and soul of a dragon. The game itself takes place in the land of Skyrim on the continent of Tamriel. Skyrim's environment is harsh and snowy and is heavily inspired by real-life Nordic environments. When looking at how ambient sound helps to immerse the player, it's important to understand what's actually happening. Schizophonic activity is the ability to remove sound from its source. For example, if I were to go and record a video of a forest, I would then most likely have captured the ambience of the forest as well. Schizophonic activity would then allow me to remove the audio of the forest and it would become its own separate entity. And then alongside schizophonic activity comes syncresis, and it's the ability to then take that forest ambience and pair it with a new visual, maybe of another forest or something completely random, and it would then still become something. It would still create its own meaning, and you'd still be able to interpret it in its own way. So when looking at Skyrim and its ambient sound, it's clear that syncresis is key to why players are able to become so immersed in the game's world. Skyrim utilises syncresis to match its schizophonic audio of a large open snowy plain or a dense forest area with a suitable visual to help create a realistic virtual representation of the environment it took inspiration from. I'm now going to try and demonstrate how syncresis helps to build immersion by playing 5 30-second clips. Each clip will be from a different location within Skyrim's world space, and for the first 15 seconds there'll be no accompanying video. And while there's no visual aid, I want you to try and guess where the soundscapes are, and then I will play the final 15 seconds of each clip with their accompanying video. So now you've heard the first half of the clips, try to guess where within the world of Skyrim you think these soundscapes originate from. And honestly, kudos to you if you actually managed to get all of them correct, because I'm not gonna lie, it's quite difficult to differentiate them all. But okay, so now on to the last halves of the clips where you'll actually be able to see where they are from now as well. Now, you may be wondering how this really all relates to the way in which players become immersed, and you'd be completely right to be questioning that. As gaming typically takes place on a single flat plane, it makes it difficult to truly draw someone into the world that you're trying to present them with. Imagine if Skyrim had absolutely no ambient sound at all, and it was just completely silent. That would be far harder to become immersed in, and actively involved within, compared to the albeit limited but still present ambient soundscape it has now. According to McGonagall, part of what makes us happy as humans is known as satisfying work, which is being able to become immersed in clearly defined demanding activities. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that ambient sound itself is a demanding activity, because it obviously isn't, but it helps to draw the player into the world of a game, which in turn presents them with the demanding activity. Within Skyrim, the satisfying work is becoming strong enough to fight against Alduin, an ancient dragon known as the Eater of Worlds. And sound may not seem incredibly important, but without it as a player it would be far harder to become immersed and actually care for a goal of a game like Skyrim. Instead of just being an audience member perceiving a snowy landscape on a flat screen, the sound helps to draw us in and makes us an active member of the world, hooked on to the desire to grow stronger and finally defeat the Eater of Worlds. Squad is a tactical milsim first-person shooter developed by Offworld Industries, and was initially released in 2015 via Steam's Early Access program. In mid-2020, the game released into its full version, dropping the Early Access title and bringing a whole host of improvements with it. Since its inception, Squad as a game has focused heavily on sound design in order to immerse and bring its players truly into the front lines action. As the game is solely multiplayer, it makes heavy use of ambient sound to flesh out its various environments, as well as high quality sound effects for all of its weaponry. Due to Squad's unique position as an online-only game, vocalization comes through player interactions rather than dialogue from an NPC. Players are able to communicate with one another through a couple of different means within the game. Players are able to communicate via the commander radio, squad radio, and local channels. Only squad commanders are able to use the commander radio, whereas any member of your squad can communicate via the squad radio, and likewise the local channels act as a way for people to communicate when within close proximity of each other.
Just get this built up again.
Whoever is by the hub to the east, can you just go and repair it in case the other hub disappears?
When talking about games from the perspective of an avid gamer, it's easy to forget that not everyone is as accustomed to being able to get lost in a fantasy world of magic and dragons or an intense firefight of a milsim as you are. Because of this, I want to take a step back slightly. I'll keep talking about how sound draws players in or immerses them, but what are they actually being drawn into? Well, I'm glad you asked. And this is known as the Magic Circle. It's essentially an invisible area between the game and reality that allows the game to exist via its unique set of rules. When talking about the Magic Circle and Immersion, it's also key to talk about personal dissociation. Personal dissociation is essentially entering the Magic Circle and allowing it to overwhelm you. You're no longer the person sat at the keyboard, but you're the person in the game killing the dragons or giving out the orders to the rest of your squad. In my opinion, sound is absolutely key to being able to effectively disassociate personally and become truly immersed within the game. Squad is a perfect example of this because every sound has a purpose. When you hear an explosion, it's because somewhere on the map you're currently playing, someone's just caused that explosion. If you hear an artillery strike near you, you can be damn sure somebody's just called that into play and that there is another person actively working to make sure that that strike hits where it's meant to. The sound of Squad isn't just designed well, it's organic and alive. No two games will play out the same way, and you'll never experience that exact same sound one after another, no matter how many times you play the game. As I did with Skyrim, I'm now going to play two 15-second sound clips from Squad, followed by another two 15-second clips with their accompanying videos. Unlike the Skyrim clips though, I don't want you to try and guess where these are from. This time I want you to think about all the components that are working in tandem to create these soundscapes, and how effectively it helps to draw you into the magic bubble.
Can you let the BMP know that there's a lot of enemy infantry at the EMP?
They're all pushing the outside. They're all pushing the outside. Oh, there's an enemy here as well. Fuck.
When comparing both games, it's clear to see that Squad runs laps around Skyrim sound design. Take the clip of me walking along the metal walkway in Squad for instance. Not only could you hear the small creaks of the walkway as I moved across it, or the sound of my boots on the metal, you could also hear the very faint clinking of the ammo belt rattling within my gun. All of these minor details converge into one large way to draw the player into the Magic Circle, and one step closer to personal disassociation when playing Squad. Compared to Skyrim, which, although it does have its moments where its sound design shines through, like the clips of me walking through the tundra, the game doesn't have to solely rely on its sound design to draw players into the Magic Circle. Because Skyrim is a single-player RPG, it has the ability to litter the world with elements like NPCs who the player can have dialogue with in order to learn new information, or quests which send the player to all ends of the world space, allowing them to then become immersed in the rich storytelling of the game. With Squad, it had incredible organic sound design because it was required to truly bring users into the Magic Circle and to help sell the game world, whereas with Skyrim, the sound design takes more of a backseat to the environments and the quests at hand, as they are used to draw the player into the Magic Circle. Finally, I want to touch up on modding. More specifically Skyrim modding than Squad modding, but modding nonetheless. To say modding has been an important part of Skyrim's life cycle is an understatement. Whether it's mods that add new lands, weapons, armors, or just downright fix Bethesda's mistakes, mods have played a huge part in Skyrim's popularity. And for anyone who's unaware of what modding is, simply put, modding is where a user modifies a game to add, change, or completely overhaul the content to however they personally see fit. In this instance, I'm going to, as you may expect, be looking towards mods that improve upon Skyrim's frankly lackluster soundscapes. The mods I will be looking at are Immersive Sounds Compendium and Audio Overhaul for Skyrim, both of which will be linked in the description below. Audio Overhaul for Skyrim builds upon the framework of the base game. It tweaks settings like audio propagation to allow for more realism in the way sounds are heard. Alongside this, it overhauls the reverb of the game, allowing environments to have more variation in the way sounds act within them. Ambience wise, it adds over 400 new sound effects on top of the game's default sounds, so there will again be more variation to the different environments within the game. When both Audio Overhaul for Skyrim and Immersive Sound Compendium are compared, they mesh together to help create an incredible sound experience. Immersive Sound Compendium is similar to Audio Overhaul as it helps to build upon the base game's foundation and extend it way past its capabilities. For example, weapons actually sound different depending on the type that you pick up, and the sound of your movement varies between the types of clothing you're wearing, just to name a few of Immersive Compendium's additions. Okay, so I'm sure you can guess what I'm about to do, because yes, it is time for another round of soundscape examples. This time I'm only going to show 2 clips, and one is going to be me walking through Riverwood in a vanilla Skyrim, and then the other is going to be the exact same route, except this time it's going to have Audio Overhaul and Immersive Sounds Compendium. Now, I'm not expecting you to start crying with how beautiful the modded soundscape is, or for you to honestly really even notice, but what I do want you to do is try and see if you can notice, because, so to me, the difference is pretty much night and day, but I would be incredibly interested in what you guys think, so please feel free to leave a comment below with your own thoughts.
I don't know who you think I am, and
So I just want to jump in with a quick editor's note here. I've just noticed that for some reason the armor I'm wearing isn't making any sound as I move through Riverwood, but I hope this still showcases the difference in just the environmental ambience rather than the armor itself, as that wasn't really the focus of the clips themselves, so just wanted to clear that up. Anyway, back to my concluding rambles. Now, I'm going to try and attempt to conclude my video. Firstly, I hope that this has helped demonstrate how sound within games is crucial to drawing players into the Magic Circle. I still feel many people overlook sound when it comes to gaming, and they lay their focus too heavily on graphics, but to me, I think the age-old adage of people will watch a shit quality video with great audio, but they won't watch a beautiful video with shit audio applies heavily to games too. People focus on graphics when, in reality, if a game released with dire audio, it would be more of an immersion kill than if the graphics were dated. The Magic Circle is quite a mystery in the way that it works, but I'm a firm believer that when we game, we're in a constant battle between reality and the Magic Circle, and I stand by that sound is one of, if not the most important factor of that. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it's been informative and somewhat interesting. I've done a few other videos similar to this format. One is about Minecraft and why it's a game I'll always keep coming back to, and I also did a similar video on Skyrim and why again that is a game that I always come back to. But once again, I have been BigWhomas, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.